Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother 24 Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and this is the podcast where we talk about everything from the feeds and we rate the players based on how well we think they're doing in the game. And we also talk about everything else going on here in the realm of the Big Brother 24 live feeds. With me this week to talk through it all is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing great. I am excited to talk about this week, even though, not that much happened, but, it's still going to be interesting to see going into the double who we think is safe or who we think is not safe. And I feel like this is one of the first seasons, well, not like the first seasons, but this is usually, I feel like, you can kind of, as the game narrows down, start to see like one group kind of dominating or really solid like alliances forming. I feel like this season it's very like, feel like we say this a lot, but it's very like fluid where it's like there are little tiny groupings and I never really know when someone is actually being honest about trying to work with someone or not. So I think this is going to be a really interesting end game, which I normally do not say. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes, well, also with us this week is Aysha. How you doing, Aysha?
Hello, I'm doing well. I realized the last time I was here on the round table, the leftovers had just formed. And so if you would have told me...
so happy back then.
I know. If you would have told me then that now we would be talking about the fact that Taylor can even talk about an endgame, I would have laughed in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, I remember back on one of the early Q&As, we were talking about Taylor's position and how, I don't remember if it was around the time the leftovers formed or if it was before then, but we were talking about like, okay, let's assume that Taylor is able to get through this. Can she win a jury vote? And I remember the conversation turning to, well, I think she could. I think that if anything, it might turn in the opposite direction. And the fact that she's survived so long could turn into, well, look at her story. And she may be too much of a threat to win the jury vote. Just another way that she's been disadvantaged in the game is that having that rough start has now made her a threat in that jury vote. And I think that she would have a great chance to win the jury vote even without that story. The story is just something obvious to point to. That is threatening. So interesting stuff here for Taylor. But here we are. And this is the 9th week of the ratings here. And we have an upcoming double eviction. We have records being broken, being tied with the possibility of records being broken on Thursday. There's a lot to talk about here, especially because the House continues to reshift and maneuver into new configurations that are very strange to me. I feel like there are very few people in the game that are actually playing optimally. And they're all just kind of like running around doing things that are bad for their game. And it's been interesting, Melissa.
Yeah, definitely. I've been very surprised by a lot of the movements. And I think that's why I'm struggling to like really piece together who's working with who and who's actually like telling the truth when they're talking to people. And I just feel like a lot of the moves that are being made are very confusing to me and don't really seem to make a lot of sense because it just takes a couple people talking to kind of get back to them that this has been like they've been saying these things. So I don't really know why people are making certain moves. And I feel like I don't feel as confident about like everyone's place in the house right now, just because like I feel like so much of it depends on who wins the next HOH. I think a lot of the people left in the house are people who go to the person in power, and there isn't a lot. I think depending on who wins this next HOH, it will change everything. So yeah, I honestly, I don't really know where everyone stands. And so I feel lost.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, a lot of seasons of Survivor or especially like recent seasons where, each week is kind of, or each, cycle or whatever is a little bit more fluid, and it's not, oh, this set alliance, they're just picking up picking off these people. I feel like what the game has turned into ever since the split house is just, I mean, like you pointed out on the live feed update, Taran, like no one fully trusts anybody. I mean, like even saying that Brittany fully trusts Michael, it is, yes, I believe she does, but she's still doing a bunch of stuff outside of what she would disclose to him. She's just doing whatever. And so I like that, you know, no matter what happens, I think the double will be exciting. You know, I think.
I think so too. I mean, obviously the results could be not exciting, but like going into it, it's exciting, and I think we'll get into why. I think there's a lot of scenarios to talk through when it comes to the double eviction. But there's really so many different possibilities for things that can happen, and it's actually pretty rare for like, okay, this person won HOH. All right, that means this person's going home probably. It's like, well, really also depends on the veto. Like there's so many different ways that things can play out. So it's a pretty exciting double eviction, I think. Let's just quickly get caught up to where we are here. Obviously, we ended last week with Kyle being evicted. Michael then won the HOH, nominated Terrence and Alyssa for eviction with the intent to target Terrence. He went ahead and won the veto, which is his 6th veto. We've talked already about how he has now broken the veto, single season veto record, as well as tied Janelle's 9 competition win in a single season record, and will have the ability to compete for a 10th, which will break that record. These records have held for 16 years. And that alone is like really exciting to me. Like, I don't know how exciting it is to other people, especially like whether or not you're rooting for Michael. But like, this is something that if you've listened to me podcasting about these shows, I feel like I bring it up every other year. Whenever somebody comes close, I'm always like, oh, if they win this amount of competitions toward the end, they could tie Janelle's record, and it never happens. And so it's very exciting for me that this is happening. It's been so long. And it's a very compelling storyline for me, at least as a Big Brother nerd, that I'm just like I can't believe this is happening. Melissa, you're muted.
Sorry, I was protecting everyone from any dog activity. So yeah, I think it's very exciting, especially because it comes to somebody who was and is obsessed with Janelle, and you know, even shouting her out at the beginning of the season, and also shouting her out to this day. So I think that's really exciting because you know that it means a lot to him. You know that he recognizes that she's a comp beast. It's not just some random like non-fan who breaks this record and is like, yeah, oh wait, who's Janelle? So this is, I really am glad it happened to somebody like Michael and not just like some random person like Mickey or something from a previous season, you know, like I just, and also the fact that like, I feel, I guess, now that you don't necessarily know who's going to be a comp beast. I can tell you that when the cast was released, I wasn't sitting there like, oh, Michael, that's a comp beast. Everyone watch out, because he's not the classic like comp beast type of person that you normally see in a season. So I had no idea he was going to be as good as he is at these competitions. And I think it goes to show that like, well, you can't just judge someone on whether or not they're going to be good in these competitions based on like appearances. So I think that that's great. I think that it's, you know, it's just so wild to see that happen. I mean, I really didn't expect anyone to break the record at this point. It's just been so long. So yeah, it's a huge accomplishment in Big Brother.
Yeah, no matter like where Michael's game ends up, I hope that like when he gets out and he hears, I mean, I know he knows that he's tied Janelle's record, but just to hear the magnitude of it, of like if he ends up winning the most comps ever won, that he's excited about it. Because like the Michael we see in the house would be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
I didn't want to have to win that many, but
yeah,
okay.
exactly. Like I hope he's as excited as Taran is, because that would be really cool to see a super fan go in the house who has done this. It, you know, we're at the final 7. And even with winning this amount of comps, you still have people saying, we might need to get Monty out because, you know, he might win something instead of looking at the guy who's actually won a lot.
Yeah. And so, you know, Michael now having tied the record, nobody else in the house knows that he has. I believe that they've asked, like, what is the record? And I'm pretty sure that Michael's response was, I don't remember. He hasn't like acknowledged it to himself really either. I would imagine that I would imagine he has an idea that he has tied the record, that he's broken the veto record. At the same time, though, without having access to Wikipedia or Google, you might not want to make the claim for yourself until you're like 100. Like, I'm pretty sure I've broken the record, but if I start proclaiming and celebrating before I can double check, like maybe I'm gonna just like stay quiet for a little bit. So we will see about that. But yes, you would imagine, and we did, that coming into this week and heading out of this week with a double coming up, that that everybody would be targeting him in the double eviction, and that basically his only chance of survival would be to win the double eviction veto. And that was its own kind of like interesting story where he has won 9 out of the 14 competitions he's played in. That's the same amount of competitions that Janelle had won when she reached her 9th win. Then she competed in her 15th, which was the final 3 HOH. She lost that one, lost the game, and that was it. 9 out of 15 competitions played. How poetic would it be if Michael asks in the beginning of the season, what would Janelle do? And then goes on to win 9 out of 14 competitions and loses his 15th to make it 9 out of 15. However, it's starting to look like that may not even be the case. And so let's try to quickly, because this is kind of a confusing situation. I'm going to try to like wrap it up as neatly as possible. But basically, Michael, he chose not to use the veto. Terrence and Alyssa are still on the block. Terrence is the target. He should be going home. However, Brittany has been running around because she's concerned that if everyone is targeting Michael, that's not good for her. She wants to be in the end with Michael. And it's not good for her because if Michael does win that double eviction veto, it leaves her on the block and exposed. And a lot of people were talking about taking Brittany out if they couldn't get Michael. So in order to prevent that, she's been making a bunch of final 2 deals. She already has one with Taylor. She's been trying to talk Taylor out of nominating Michael next week. She created one essentially with Alyssa to try and prevent Alyssa from voting her out if she's up against anybody on the block. She also approached Turner with one. She facilitated a final 4 talk with Michael, Taylor, Alyssa, and herself. Then a final 3 talk with Alyssa, Taylor, and herself, which was a women's alliance that she talked about. Before she even did that, when she approached Turner, she talked about the possibility of creating a women's alliance, which got his wheels turning. He went to Monty and told Monty, I'm concerned that there's a women's alliance going on. And they went, oh, wow, that's not good for us. If we take the shot at Michael, they'll take the shot at us. And then we are the losers in that scenario. You know what? If you can't beat them, join them. They approached Michael with a deal to say, let's make a gentleman's agreement and work together to take out all the women in the house. And we can just trade off HOHs. And Michael, of course, went, you're not going to target me? Sure. And in the process, though, they were like, well, this is because Brittany outed this women's alliance and she's doing so much. She tried to offer me, Turner, a final 2 deal. And then with the Brochella group, she's saying that Turner needs to go. And so she's playing so messy. And Michael is playing into that. Like, oh, my God, I can't believe how messy she's playing. It's like she's backstage all over again. She's being so annoying. He has even expressed to himself how annoying she is being by doing so much. However, it has severely benefited his game here as he is in a much better position moving forward into this double eviction than he was before. So right now we are in a scenario where it seems as though, as things stand, Monty and Turner are targeting Taylor and Alyssa. Monty targeting Alyssa, Turner targeting Taylor. Taylor, I believe, will still target Michael, but probably not directly. Brittany will target Turner, and Alyssa will target probably Monty. And that means that basically everyone's being targeted. That's a round robin of targets except for Brittany, right? Like that's everybody's targeting one other person except for Brittany.
Are we sure that like Monty and Turner are being truthful in all this? I feel like, I mean,
you would think they are lying, yeah.
Right. It seems odd because it's not like they're gonna get anything out of this for the double. Like, I mean, they don't know that. Well, do they know that it's a double? I mean, are they suspecting?
They have not talked about it being a double. No.
Okay. Yeah.
They're worried that there may be a double, but yeah.
That's one of the first times that people aren't like prepped for a double, but yeah, no, like I feel like it doesn't make sense for them to make this move at this point. If it was like a Turner HOH this week and they were worried about him winning HOH in the double, like making this alliance or making this a little pact or whatever would make sense because that would protect them during the double. But in this situation, like the only thing that's happening so far is that they're going to protect Michael, like when he doesn't have any power. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me.
See, Melissa, you're using logic. That's something that they.
What I've got
Melissa,
wrong
you're probably just not being vulnerable enough to understand the male perspective.
Yeah, you know what? Women, they just don't get it.
That's what blows my mind. The fact that Michael is sitting there, feet kicked up, no power, veto has been used, and they approach him afraid of the women taking over this game.
It doesn't make any sense. I feel like I was starting to like, it was like the past few weeks or whatever, there's been a lot of talk of like, okay, like we need to look at targeting Michael. And I feel like that's been the general consensus. And it's like, yeah, duh. He's been winning all these competitions. What have you been doing in the meantime? Like there was no urgency throughout the entire season, even though he's been winning comps consistently. It's like every other HOH basically. And they are like haven't had that urgency to get him out. And I feel like now that it's like, okay, we're getting down to the wire, we have to get him out. Especially because considering that like now there's not gonna have that backdoor option because everyone's gonna play in the veto. So now would be like the time to be concerned, panicked, maybe even that he's just gonna win out the rest of the time. And now instead of being like, okay, this week, everybody, let's get together. Everyone's going to go after Michael, which I thought was going to happen. I thought people were going to be like, look, like, Michael, you know you're the biggest threat. We're all going to have to try and get you out. If you win a veto or whatever, that's great for you. But, like, we're going to have to do what we have to do. And instead, they just want to work with him. They want to keep him safe. It does not make any sense to me. I totally don't understand it.
Obviously. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the biggest thing that people or the guys in the house every season are just afraid of the women grouping together, no matter what stage, apparently, because how is Brittany, Alyssa, and Taylor a bigger threat than Mr. 9 competition wins himself?
He has more than all 3 of them combined.
Yes. I don't understand it.
If they are being truthful, we watch the episodes, their DRs are like, yes, it's better to stick with Michael than try to get him out, blah, 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 blah. Then I hope Michael wins because that is the dumbest decision at this point, especially if they are able to get him out on Thursday.
Not only does Michael have more than all 3 of those women combined, but if you take into account the fact that all 3 of Brittany's wins were either with Michael, because of Michael, or Michael threw it to her, then there's literally one competition win that is like a solo competition win between the 3 of them. It's Taylor's HOH win, which she did not compete against Michael for. And that means that he has 9 times as many wins as the 3 of them combined.
I don't get it.
Those others.
I don't understand. I really don't understand what these guys are doing.
Well, I think that obviously we have Brittany, I think, has put in a lot of work to make this happen. And I think that this is a weird situation where I want to credit her for it, but it's like she's doing work that is not angled for her own win. It's angled for somebody else's win. Still, though, pretty effective in some ways. You also, I think, have to blame Terrance for this because I really do believe that it's Terrance very publicly saying, I am going to poison the jury against you, Michael. You will never win this game. I talked about this when it happened to Cody, California in season 22. Like, I talk about this a lot. If you claim that you're going to poison the jury against somebody, you are only helping them in the game, because what it's signaling to everyone else in the game is when Monty has been thinking, Michael is this unstoppable force of nature, and if I don't take him out, I'm definitely losing the game. And now Monty is thinking, Michael is an unstoppable force of nature, but plan B, if I do end up in the end with him, hey, maybe Terrance has poisoned the jury against him. Maybe I still win. It's not that bad. And so I think that fear has left Monty a little bit, because the backup plan of worst case scenario, I just go to the end with Michael, it's not as bad. It's not as terrifying anymore. He's not a guaranteed win anymore in Monty's eyes.
Don't they realize that if they by chance beat him all of a sudden, that the likelihood of that happening again is very, very, very low? It's like, you don't get a second chance to beat Michael. Like, he has proved that time and time and time again. And I just wonder, how did we even get here? Like, 9 competitions, that is a lot. Like, where, because I know that Michael has kind of put himself, and he knows it, he's put himself in a position where he has to win out at this point. There's no other option, right? But we're at 3, like at 3 competition wins, then how did he just trip his way all the way to 9?
He's only been vulnerable twice this entire game. And both of those times he couldn't compete in the veto, or because he didn't compete in the veto. He only competed once. He's never been vulnerable if he's been given 2 attempts at competing in competitions. So yeah, it's only been twice thus far. The competitions only get easier for people that are physical enough to play them and good enough to win them. As time goes on, there are fewer people to compete against. And so, yeah, this is, if he is vulnerable in the double eviction, it would not surprise me at all if it is the last time he is ever vulnerable in the entire game. They're just not as concerned about that because, hey, Terrance is going to poison the jury. Don't worry about it. Terrance has power.
I think Michael's like strategy to combat that is actually very smart. I think, the idea of mentioning it in the speech, so that way it kind of tees up the fact that Terrance is planning on doing this and the jury will see that. I think that's so huge, because I feel like somebody telling me, hey, this person did this thing, it didn't sit well with me, and I don't know if I can vote for them as like the winner, is one thing. But having someone say, hey, someone's going to tell you this to make me look bad, just, be aware of that. They've been telling me they're going to do this to make me look bad. And then that person comes to me being like, hey, yeah, he was right. I am going to tell you this. It doesn't like sit as well with me. It doesn't resonate as much to hear it in that manner versus like, hey, I just feel like it's weighing on my heart, versus knowing that this person is purposefully doing this to taint the jury. I think that I think Michael's really smart to, mention it in the speech. It just makes everything that Terrance is saying not seem legit. It just seems like a threat. It seems game related and not just like, hey, I needed to tell you this information. And it seems personal. So yeah. I think that Michael's making the right choice in terms of that sort of part of the strategy. And so to me, even though initially I was a little worried about Terrance tainting the jury, and honestly, just a little worried, because I don't feel like Terrance has that much sway with the jury, but you never know. But I think now I feel less concerned about that if Michael were to make it to the end. I don't think it's he's never going to win a jury vote type of thing. But it does seem like Brittany might not have the opportunity to win a jury vote, because it does seem like most people don't respect her game and don't even think that she's really playing. I mean, you have Terrance and Taylor talking about how the comic was calling her a flea being carried, and then Big Brother, kind of, I guess, like saying that that's correct by saying zing, like basically indicating that they're right about that. That's going to definitely affect their opinion. And then you have like Turner, when he tells Michael the story about how Brittany said that that, we can only win against each other or whatever. We played a similar game, and Turner was like, yeah, I think I played a lot better than you, but whatever, like with peace and love. It shows that most people don't have respect for Brittany's game at all. So I absolutely see a scenario where Brittany gets to the end and doesn't win no matter who she's up against. So, yeah, I mean, I think in regards to the jury in the end, I think Michael has a really good shot.
And on that point with Terrence trying to poison the jury, it'd be so different if this wasn't Michael's HOH and then he goes into the jury and trying to say things about Michael. But no, Michael got you out. So there's what you're saying. You're just mad. You're sitting here with it. Like if I were in the jury and he came in saying that, it's like, yeah, you're sitting here. You're just mad. So I think that carries no weight. I think that was the only thing he could lean on because, he thought he was really doing something in Direfest. And so now he's back in the house. He's just trying to, he's like, wait, I was a mastermind. What do I do now? Like, I'm back in this position that I was in. It's like, yeah, that's been the position you've been in. So I think it's nothing to worry about, but I could see that, Michael wants to do everything he can just to make sure like that carries no weight.
Yeah, I will say, I think that if, say, like Turner was going to, follow Terrence to the jury, and Turner, who has not been, like Michael is not saying Turner is going to poison the jury against me, and it's Michael's vote that sends Turner out, which is a very likely scenario in a few different of these situations. I could see Turner being very bitter against Michael, also kind of backing up what Terrence is saying. That could hold more weight, especially if they start to go like, okay, well, sure, Terrence is bitter, but also Turner is bitter. Maybe he's not good at jury management. Maybe this is the weakness in Michael's game. So it is certainly possible that things could start rolling in that way. But overall, yeah, I'd say I think Terrence alone is probably not going to be enough.
Yeah, that makes me think of something too, of like the jury and what do they respect. So like if Turner is bitter, as somebody who the only other person who has had 2 HOHs outside of Michael, I think if he is bitter as someone who has won a couple of comps, then he goes into the jury, then Michael has won so much, he hasn't given anyone else the opportunity to win. So they're not going to care about comps because it's not like people in there who understand, winning a comp, that's so great. They're like, well, if he didn't win all those comps, he would have been out. Or, what else did he do besides win all of those comps is not important. So I think, some juries over others respect comp wins more. And I just can't see this jury really respecting the magnitude of how many comps he has won and how impressive that is, because they might think, okay, what else?
Certainly possible. Well, let's take a look at the double eviction, because I send out a survey every week where the audience can fill out their opinions on the players and various situations. And I asked the audience who they think will be evicted in the double eviction. So we have an order from the audience. And I also have a whole diatribe to go on in terms of my predictions. So let's first hear from the audience. They think that Turner is the most likely person to be evicted in the double eviction. About 28% said Turner. I do agree with this at actually a somewhat similar percentage. We'll get into that in just a second. They think that Michael is the second most likely person to be evicted. I don't think this is far off, but I actually have the next person, Alyssa, as my second most likely. They're very close in percentage from the audience, though. Then the audience says Brittany at 11% is the next most likely, and this I very much disagree with. I think that Brittany is the least likely person to be evicted. I actually would have Taylor here, and Taylor is in 5th place from the audience at 7%, and then Monty last. Monty least likely to leave from the audience at about 5%. So overall, I think I'm mostly in line with this, but I definitely would have Brittany lower, Alyssa higher, and Taylor higher. But what do you guys think about this list?
Yeah, I do think Turner is pretty vulnerable here. I also think Alyssa could be a target for sure. I mean, it's hard for me because I do think that really most anyone could be vulnerable in this situation. Although I do tend to agree that I think probably Brittany is not, just because most people don't see her as a threat. Although there was talk last week, although it does seem like that talk is like out the window now, but like weakening Michael's game by getting Brittany out or making it, there was talk between Terrence and Monty about, well, we don't want to have to vote for Michael or Brittany because they shouldn't be rewarded for, not telling the information when they first got it about Kyle. So they both were like, we need to get at least one of them out so that we're not forced to vote between them. Like, we're not forced to give them the win. So I don't know where that stands as of now, but there was conversation about like getting Brittany out because of Michael. And if they don't want to vote Michael out, like,
Yeah, that was before the deal, the gentleman's agreement.
I know, that's the thing, is I have no idea what's going on anymore. So, because I also don't know if I believe this gentleman's agreement. So
okay, yeah, you mentioned that earlier. So there is reason to believe that they may change their minds, but I do think that as of right now, they are actually on board. They have Monty and Turner speaking to each other multiple times now, agreeing that this is the plan that they want to move forward with. And they have no reason to lie to each other about it.
Yeah, I guess you're right that like, because they're saying it to each other, it's probably correct, but it just feels so stupid that I feel like I don't believe it still, even though it's like, yeah, they're telling it to each other. They're telling it to everyone. Like, there's no reason to lie about it with each other, but it just feels idiotic. Why are they doing this? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I feel like you're right in that I'm thinking it from a logical perspective, and it's just like it's like does not compute, because it just doesn't make any sense at this point in the game to be like, actually, instead of targeting the biggest threat, let's work with him when he's vulnerable. I guess I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, in terms of the order, I think I would think Brittany a little bit higher, because I could see a situation where they find out it's double eviction. Okay, let's say Turner and Monty come to their senses, like, why do we have this gentleman's agreement? I doubt that will happen. But if that happened, anything is possible. And there is a situation where they put up Michael and Brittany. If Michael wins veto and they have to throw up, Alyssa, I don't see a situation that they don't vote out Brittany there, because you have Brittany right there who is connected to Michael.
I think the thing is that at this point, they genuinely believe that there is a rift between Michael and Brittany at this point. And they do not see Brittany as a threat. They see Alyssa as the person that's trying to draw the women together. And so they both see both Alyssa and Taylor as bigger threats than Brittany at this moment.
Alyssa, who has put in zero effort this week to stay. I mean,
she's put effort in. She's worked on the women. She's worked on Michael. Like, I think she's put in some work.
So that effort, to me, I feel it's like, I was thinking about this earlier, because I was like, what has Alyssa done? I'm like, yeah, she's gone all in on this girl's thing, because she's thinking she has their 2 votes. She can get Michael's vote as the tiebreaker. She's good, right? But it's like, when can you fully rely on that when y'all haven't been together this whole game? Like, her and Brittany talking about, oh, we're full circle as the final 2, because our games we went apart and now we're back together. Yeah, because you can all of a sudden trust each other now. Like, I feel like when it's an unsure thing like this, where she doesn't know if she can fully trust them, then she should have been putting in some type of effort, rebuild that relationship with Turner, create something with Monty, like, just have conversations. Like, they barely interact. Like, the only time she was interacting with Monty was right after Kyle left, and when Monty's heart was broken over Taylor not giving him any attention, and he just needed somebody to vent to, and then they related in that heartbreak. But I mean, outside of that, it's just like, I feel like she should be, her staying is no doing of her own.
Yeah, I think I'd push back a little bit on that. I think that because she has explained that she's tried to talk to Monty a few times, and every time she does, like, he just weirdly brings up like really personal stuff, and it's weird, and she can't seem to break through to talk game with him, which tracks considering what Monty says about women, right? And obviously she was working very closely with Turner, but he has all but completely dropped her. Anytime he talks with her, he's just trashing Kyle, and no longer wants to work with her because he's all in with Monty. She knows he's all in with Monty because she knows about the pound now, and so she's concerned about that. I actually think she put in some decent work with Michael, Brittany, and even Taylor to really make sure that they didn't flip on her. There was a chance that they would have because Monty and Turner really did start to push. But it was those three that really held the line to make sure that the vote did not flip. And I do think that Alyssa, gets some credit for that. And if not for Brittany doing Brittany things, I think Alyssa, this women's thing might have stuck and might have been very good for her. The only reason she's in any danger moving forward is because Brittany went wild. So I agree ultimately. I mean, this is far too little too late for Melissa, and it's not like she's playing like the best game in the world. But I also think that this is probably one of her better weeks in the game, which isn't saying much.
Yeah, I guess it is like she's doing what she can, but then like what she can do is just like not a lot given the circumstances, given that she was on Love Island for most of the summer. So I don't know. Because I also don't see a situation where she wins. I mean, because we can think about, if she's in the final two with maybe Brittany, how is that happening? Like, how do we get there? Yeah. So, that's ultimately what I'm thinking. Just a little too little, too late.
I think if Alyssa had like proven herself more in competitions, I think that would have been like a good pickup for somebody, like to be like, hey, you lost your showmance, you're alone now, like let's work together, let's form something, whatever. And I know people are saying like let's work together, let's form something with her, but like not really necessarily legitly, like with Brittany, kind of ratting it out and being like, yeah, it's not real. It could have been a good situation, but I feel like nobody has any sort of faith that Alyssa will do well in competitions or protect them really in any way, aside from just like being a vote, or possibly being someone that they could beat in the end. However, a lot of people are convinced that she would actually win because of friends in the jury. So it's tough because she really doesn't have that sort of, any sort of way to grab hold of a game at this point that usually people kind of can get after their showmance gets evicted. You usually can be like, hey, I'm a lone actor here. I can, I can work with you. You can pick me up. I can be your teammate. But in this situation, it's so far into the game and she doesn't really have, any sort of competition prowess that she can point to as like, I can be an asset to you, that I feel like she's just doing the best she can, but it's just not really that much at this point.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm sounding really down on Alyssa, but I do think that at the beginning of the game, had she not paired off with Paloma so early, I think she could have had a better start. And then had she not fallen head over heels for Kyle, Alyssa could be in a way better position in this game.
I mean, old school never would have been blown up. Right. It would have been a whole different game.
Right. So, given
if Alyssa could have just played it totally differently, right? She would have done well.
Great.
Literally, it's just the one thing. Just don't tell Kyle that information, and it's a different game. All right. Kyle. So I spent far too much time trying to run through all the scenarios in the double eviction. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. I tried to calculate out. I tried to like run through literally like every scenario, every HOH and veto win, with some assumptions, obviously, to make it reasonable to predict this. My assumptions here are that Monty and Turner right now are more likely to stick with Michael, but I accounted for the fact that they could change their minds after the veto if Michael hasn't won it. They could decide that after the veto, he's right there. They may decide to take the shot. I'm assuming that Turner's going to want to target Taylor and that Monty's going to want to target Alyssa. That's what they said last night. I'm assuming that Taylor wants to take the shot at Michael, but won't do it until after veto as well. She won't want to show her cards until after he hasn't won the veto. I'm assuming that Alyssa will stick with this women's alliance plus Michael, but might also target Michael after the veto. Probably wouldn't put Michael up straight away, considering that the deal that they've made, but may take a shot at him post-veto. I'm also assuming that Michael and Brittany will vote Turner out over Monty Michael's talked about being more threatened by Turner in competitions. They also have more of a deal with the Brochella alliance with Monty, so it makes more sense that they would lean in that direction. I'm also factoring in competition performance as much as I can. I'm putting Michael in a tier of his own. He is by far the most likely person to win a competition, but he's not playing in the HOH. So he is in a league of his own there. I'm then having Taylor, Turner, and Monty in the next tier as sort of like they are like the next most likely people to win either competition. And then Alyssa and Brittany in the lowest tier. I could definitely see an argument for putting Brittany in the higher tier. I think she's perfectly capable of winning a mental competition. But the reason I put her in the bottom tier is because I think that she's the least likely to win a physical competition. And I think that the double eviction will have both a mental and a physical competition. We don't know which will be HOH and which will be veto. And so overall, I think that Alyssa could beat Brittany in a physical comp. Brittany could beat Alyssa in a mental comp. And I think that it kind of might balance itself out there. So given those likelihoods and those assumptions, here's what I have. I have it all over the board. But primarily, there's a top four. And that's Turner, Alyssa, Michael, and Taylor. With Turner being the most likely person to be evicted, I have it at roughly 31%. Which is not very high for a most likely. This is a plurality of percentage here. The most likely scenario I think that Turner leaves is if Taylor wins HOH and then Michael wins the veto. I think that Taylor nominates Turner and Alyssa. Michael wins the veto, probably doesn't use it, and then probably betrays Turner to vote him out heading into the 5. And then Turner joins Terrence going to the jury. That's the most likely scenario I see for Turner leaving. He doesn't actually have a ton of like really likely scenarios. He just has a ton of not as likely scenarios. So like Brittany winning HOH almost always leads to a Turner eviction unless he wins the veto. Alyssa winning HOH could also lead to some Turner evictions, assuming she's willing to put him up because she wants to stick with the women. So there are like, it requires one of the less likely people to win competitions most of the time to take Turner out. But there are so many scenarios where that happens that it really adds up. I have Alyssa in second place, just under Turner at 28%. And she has a lot of more likely scenarios. So that's like Turner winning HOH, Monty winning HOH. I think the most likely scenario of all, I think Turner's the best competitor of the 5 competing in HOH, and I think Michael's the best competitor competing for veto. A Turner HOH and a Michael veto probably leads to an Alyssa eviction. And that's because if Turner puts up Brittany and Alyssa, and Michael takes down Brittany, Taylor goes up. They vote out Alyssa over Taylor, probably. If he doesn't use the veto, he puts up Brittany and Taylor. Michael wins the veto. He takes down Brittany. He puts up Alyssa next to Taylor, and they probably vote Alyssa out at that point. It could lead to a Taylor eviction if Michael chooses not to use the veto, or if they just choose to vote out Taylor. But I don't see Michael and Brittany both choosing to evict Taylor over Alyssa at this point. Alyssa's in a position where if the more likely people to win competitions win those competitions, she's in this like bad spot. So she's almost equally likely as Turner. Fewer scenarios, but those scenarios are more likely given the competitors. I then have Michael in third place. There's a big drop here. Alyssa's at 28%. I have Michael at 19%. And that's because most of the primary scenarios don't involve Michael being evicted. All of the scenarios, there's just like, even more than Turner, there's a ton of spots where Michael's vulnerable to be evicted. And so this percentage is mostly made up of what if Monty and Turner decide to change their minds? What if Alyssa decides to take a shot? You know, what if, like, that's basically the scenario where Michael goes home. And so all of those possibilities and him not winning the veto make up this 19%. I then have Taylor just below him at 16%. She has a couple of likely scenarios. One of the most likely, I think, would be Turner winning the HOH and the veto. I think he puts up Brittany and Taylor, doesn't use the veto, and I think that Taylor goes home in that spot. There are a few others that are pretty likely that could happen, but she's definitely an option here. Then I have Monty at roughly 2%. I basically only found one scenario where I really thought it was super likely that Monty would go home. And that scenario is Brittany winning HOH and Turner winning veto. I think that Brittany nominates Monty and Turner. If Turner wins the veto, she replaces Turner with probably Alyssa. And then I do think still that Michael and Alyssa would send out Monty over, or sorry, Michael and Brittany would send out Monty over Alyssa at that point. I would assume. But even that is like, you never know for sure. And then Brittany, I really just don't see a scenario where Brittany leaves. At least like that's super likely, right? Under those assumptions. And that's because like, if you look at it, like who can she sit next to where she goes home? You could put her up next to Alyssa, and right now, Michael, Monty, and Turner, all three of them want Alyssa out over Brittany. As long as you have three people, it doesn't matter who's the HOH, you have at least 2 votes, right? So she stays over Alyssa. If she's next to Taylor, Michael, Monty, and Turner all want Brittany to stay over Taylor. Even if you say Monty might want to keep Taylor over Brittany, you have a situation where Alyssa probably votes for, in fact, all 4 likely would vote out Taylor over Brittany. But at least 3 of them, if you include Alyssa. Then you have like Turner and Monty, same sort of deal. You're always having at least 3 people, because the thing is that unless she's on the block with Michael, she has a guaranteed 1 vote in Michael. She only needs 1 more. She can easily grab Alyssa, easily grab Taylor, easily grab Monty or Turner, depending on who she's on the block against. The person that she is the most likely person to leave against right now is weirdly Michael, because Monty and Turner would probably vote out Michael over Brittany. The problem is that there's no scenario right now where she ends up on the block next to Michael, with Monty and Turner being the 2 votes, because I don't see Alyssa or Taylor nominating both Michael and Brittany right now. I think that they would nominate some combination of the guys. Alyssa would probably nominate Turner, Alyssa would probably nominate Monty, and Taylor would probably nominate Turner. And so there are very few scenarios where Brittany actually ends up in the line of fire. So that's my order. Turner, Alyssa, most likely. Little bit of a drop. Michael, Taylor, big drop. Monty, Brittany. That's how I see it as of right now. That's my rant.
That's no, and I think you're probably right. But I do think it's interesting that like the people that you would expect to be at the top of the list for Most in Danger are Michael and Monty. And instead they're near the middle or bottom. Like it's wild to think that that's the case. But yeah, I think you're right. I do think Turner is in a vulnerable spot. And Alyssa as well, which, is pretty surprising that Alyssa would be vulnerable at this point in time. I really thought, prior to this whole gentleman's agreement thing or whatever, I did think Michael was, in the most danger. However, knowing what typically they use as a veto comp for doubles, like I thought he probably could have won that. So I wasn't thinking Michael was for sure going home, but I thought he was at least going to be vulnerable. So I don't know what's going on anymore in this house.
Now I'm going to read what I have prepared. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Everyone just reads like a thesis.
Those percentages definitely help, because I didn't think about it so much I kept forgetting about Turner's likelihood, which is funny that he has the highest likelihood when you think about it that way. My question I have for you, Taran, is, so you said you don't think that Taylor will nominate Brittany, but I wonder if she would just go ahead and nominate Brittany and Michael because of yesterday when she found out about, her Brittany in these final 2s, and then Brittany wasn't honest about those final 2s, or like, especially with the one with Turner to Taylor, and Taylor just seemed a little more closed off with Brittany than she normally is. And so I wonder are those wheels turning? Like, okay, if I do get HOH and I'm trying to go after Michael, and I don't put up Brittany and Michael, then is there a situation where Brittany wins veto and takes Michael off?
Here's my thought process on Taylor. So I think she's not pleased with Brittany potentially going around and doing these things. She did say to Monty she didn't really believe that it was true. And she also still tried to protect Brittany with Monty, saying, it doesn't matter what she's doing. We're still going to final 3 with her, right? And even to the cameras, she said, is there a way I can get Brittany to the end with me? She also mentioned Terrence, and she changed her mind on that. But I do still think she doesn't want to risk Brittany. I think she would love to sit next to Brittany in the final 2. And I also think that I don't think that she realizes that she needs to ensure that Michael is on the block, and because she's still under the assumption, I think, that Monty and Turner are willing to vote Michael out. Which is why I think that if she wins HOH, she's going to say, look, we all agreed, Brochella, Turner, and Alyssa. And she thinks as long as Michael doesn't win, basically almost any scenario, maybe if Brittany wins, she'll not use it. But if anybody else wins, the veto will be used. As long as Michael touches the block, he's definitely going home. And I don't need to worry about it. So why would I risk putting Michael up in the first place, getting him pissed off at me? He wins the veto. Now he's coming for me next week, when I can just wait for the veto to not be won by him and then take the shot and it will land. What she doesn't realize is that if she takes that shot, there's a chance it doesn't land because Monty and Turner may not be on board anymore. So that's sort of where I'm seeing it right now. And again, there's a couple days, things could change, but that's sort of what I think she will do.
Yeah, I just really hope she realizes that she can't risk it. Like final 6, deciding to try to backdoor someone, you cannot put your faith in these people that they will want your plan. And so it's so difficult because whether Michael is on the block or not, that is not going to stop him from winning a competition. He has proven that time and time again of winning when he didn't even need to, but he just had the ability, so he was going to win it. Michael is smart enough to know that he is a potential backdoor option. Like if he doesn't win it, he knows that he could go up. He probably would. That probably would even be in his mind if Brittany won and didn't put him up initially. He probably would think if Brittany is really thinking she would go ahead and take this shot at me, so I need to go ahead and win. I think that other people, I know some people can get out of hand with it, like Vanessa, season 17, of just trying to think about what other people would be thinking, and operating from a place of like, they're doing what's in their best interest, and this is what I think that they think is in their best interest. But I think Taylor needs to be doing a little bit more of that, of just thinking, okay, if I were Michael, would I want to win this competition? Absolutely. I would just want to win everything for the rest of my time here. So I really hope that, when Taylor wins HOH in the double and I'm jumping up and down excited for my girl, that she does the right thing. But either way, I think, I hope whoever gets HOH doesn't try to do a backdoor, because that's just putting in more work than they need to.
I think they all have deals with Michael. So nobody wants to turn their back on the deal with Michael until they know for sure the shot will land. So I think that's why that they would all probably do a backdoor. There are a couple of interesting scenarios. For instance, if Monty wins the HOH and, as he's saying, puts up Brittany and Alyssa, if Taylor wins the veto, she could force a scenario where she uses it on Alyssa and puts Michael up next to Brittany. And then Brittany might leave, or more likely, her and Alyssa could vote out Michael in that spot. It's, again, Brittany doesn't leave there. It would probably be Michael. So she could force a scenario where she takes out Michael on a Monty HOH, even if Monty's not willing to take out Michael himself. But she would probably need to use it on Alyssa in order for that to happen. She's probably more likely to use it on Brittany. And if she used it on Brittany, then Brittany and Turner could still save Michael next to Alyssa. But that's one scenario. There's also Alyssa could do the same thing on a Taylor HOH, or a Taylor HOH could be a spot where Michael goes home if Alyssa wins the veto. Alyssa could also force Michael on the block in a Turner HOH. If she's left off the block, she could do the same thing that Taylor could. If she takes down Taylor, it would force Turner to put up Michael, and then her and Taylor could vote out Michael. These are not super likely scenarios, but they're kind of interesting ones, and they would make for really good television.
We've also seen, what Taylor does, her decisions you know, I'm thinking of her HOH. You know, her first thought of what to do was just kind of out there. And I'm thinking in a double eviction situation, she does not have that much time to think through multiple avenues. So I really hope that, you know, once they find out that it's a double eviction, those wheels are turning about what to do. And so if if Taylor is left to her own devices, we might see something funny happen because she thinks that this is the way to get something done, just because of how she's operated so far.
Yeah. So some interesting stuff heading into this double eviction. We have some other questions, though, to quickly run through here. I asked the audience who they want to win HOH next week. 38% said Taylor. 39% said Taylor. 38% said Brittany. Almost a tie there. Taylor, who wants to take a shot at Michael. Brittany, who would protect Michael. A little bit of a war going on there, I think. Interesting, though, to think about in terms of my scenarios. It's the person who probably leads to a Michael eviction the most is actually Alyssa as the HOH, in my opinion. Not Taylor, even though she's looking to take the shot at Michael, because Alyssa is more likely to put up 2 men initially. That actually makes Michael more likely to leave on an Alyssa HOH more so than a Taylor one, even though Taylor's primarily targeting Michael and Alyssa may not be. But Alyssa is 3rd place with, and then Monty in 4th, both with around 9%. So that's what the audience would like to see. They're back to wanting a Taylor HOH after all this time.
They're ready for it again. Yeah.
I think unsurprisingly, 92% of the audience is hoping that Terrence is the one. That's the one they want to be evicted this week. Yeah. I also asked the audience, who do you think is the biggest threat to win a jury vote? Rank them in order of biggest threat to win a jury vote to least likely to win a jury vote. And this was like a perfect set of steps in the graph here. No close votes. It's as everyone seems to agree here. Michael, they think, is still the most likely to win a jury vote, even after this week, followed by Taylor, followed by Monty, then Turner, then Alyssa, Brittany, and Terrence in last place. I think there's definitely a good chance for Taylor to beat Michael. I think Monty and Michael, I think there's a chance Monty beats Michael, but I do think that's a closer one. I wouldn't have Michael solidly above those two. I do think that Michael can beat the rest of them, though. Turner, Alyssa, and Brittany.
Yeah, I was thinking I probably would have put Taylor as best bet to win a jury vote because I think I feel like the jury members who have left in their interviews seem to speak highly of her. And I think that she doesn't have any sort of that potential for people to be upset about the Kyle thing with her. Whereas I think Michael and Brittany, like possibly people might be, if Terrence or whoever like explains it in a way that makes it seem like, I don't know if we want to have this be the overall like mark on our season. Like I could see people kind of wanting to vote for somebody else just because, not that I agree with that necessarily, but I think that there might be a kind of, feeling that, if it comes down to it, maybe giving it to someone like Taylor, who's had like this whole like journey of, being on the bottom and then rising to the top and winning, like maybe that's like a better story for their season. I know that in the past people have talked about what do we want the overall season to like be represented through the winner? Like, what do we want for our season? And not just looking at it as like, okay, well, they played the best game, so I'm going to give them the win. Whereas like that maybe has been like how it has been in the past. Now I do feel like it's like, well, what do we want to represent us? Like who best represents like our season as a whole? And so I think that could give Taylor the edge.
I think so too. Well, I also asked the audience, do you think Michael will beat Janelle's single season competition record? Last week, 84% of the audience said yes, they thought Michael would beat it. He has now tied it this week, and now 94% think that he will beat it, which means that they either 94% think he will win this double eviction veto, or that he will survive the double eviction and go on to win at least one more competition moving forward this season. It's certainly looking more likely. You know, if he was still the main target heading to this double eviction, I think I would actually still say no. I wouldn't think he would do it. But given that he is likely going to survive anyway, or has a good chance to, I think I'm now with the yeses. I now think, yeah, there's a pretty good chance he's going to beat this record.
Yep, definitely.
I asked the audience to rate Michael's HOH reign this week. Last week, they gave Turner's HOH reign a 3.7. Wasn't great. And the last time Michael was HOH, they gave his rating a his HOH reign a 7.2. So they felt pretty good about it about his decisions on that one. That's when he took out Jasmine. This week, they gave Michael's HOH reign a 5.2. Kind of in the middle. And I think the reason why is I asked them also, do you think Michael made the best decision for his game with his nominations? And almost 80% of the audience said no. He did not make the right call with nominations. However, he is coming out of this week in a pretty good spot. And I think that like dichotomy ends up smack dab in the middle at a 5.2. Like, no, he did not make the correct decisions, but yes, Brittany did a lot of weird things and it ended up bailing him out. And he's in a great spot now moving forward. So
yeah, if you had asked me right after nominations, I would have said like, no, he's not doing a good job at all, you know, with his HOH. But it turns out that maybe it's going to be okay. So I guess like probably this is good for him, shockingly. But yeah, I think in terms of like nominations themselves, the, you know, first thought would be get out a big threat. And instead he's kind of just going along and getting out the two outsiders. So, or putting up the two outsiders, which is fine. But in terms of like his game moving forward, where he has to potentially win out, not great to keep, you know, some of the biggest comp threats in the house to compete against. However, I guess they're not going to compete against him and they're going to keep him safe. So who knows anymore?
Yeah, that's my issue with that, is that like it wasn't his doing. It was a combination of Turner and Monty just panicking based on Brittany's actions and what she's told them about, you know, the girls all coming together. Because it's just like, Taran, do you think that Michael had anything to do with Monty and Turner approaching him with this gentleman's agreement?
I will say the one thing I will give him credit for is that, you know, one of the reasons why he didn't want to target Monty and Turner was that he did think it was possible that if he left that door open, they might walk through it. And by not doing it, it makes him seem like he is true to his word. And that's part of why they mistakenly, in my opinion, believe that he will stay true to his word all the way down to 3. So I'll give him that. And I think that is definitely something. That said, if it was that alone, I don't think it would be nearly enough. I think that Michael doing just that still ends with everybody targeting him. If it weren't for Brittany doing what she was doing, and also Terrence doing what he was doing, neither of which Michael really wants them to do, I think that he would not be in this position. So I will give him that amount of credit, but I do not think that this is a move that I can say Michael made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like picturing final two, Michael, let's say it's Michael and Taylor. Taylor's game speaks for itself with the jury. Like, I feel like they can see, wow, we all really wanted her out, and look at her now. She's in the final two. But with Michael, it's just like past the competition wins, they're going to ask, you know, what are the decisions that he's made? And I was wondering if he would be able to call back this final 7 HOH, but, you know, I mean, and he may think that he would, you know, this alliance was brought to me. I didn't even have to do anything, and I ended up in a great position. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if he makes it that far and kind of what he decides to take credit for.
Mm-hmm. So I also asked the audience to rate the episodes, the feeds, and the season as a whole so far. Last week, the episodes were a 5.1. This week, a 4.8. The feeds were last week a 5.9. This week, a 5.3. I actually feel like a 5.3 is kind of harsh for these feeds that have been pretty interesting overall. I think that there is like a drop in interest overall. I think that like I think that it's almost maybe too nebulous for people. It's like, so like what is even happening at this point? So like I feel like people aren't following it as closely, but it's been pretty interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. So 5.3, I think for me is a little low. And then the season as a whole so far, a 6.6, down from last week's 6.8. Which was, of course, continuing to be sort of like a downward trajectory here for the season. Still, though, above average. So they got that going for them.
Yeah, I think it always kind of gets less exciting when you get down towards the end game, although I guess it's not really end game yet, but you know.
I think what it is that nobody in the house is playing well. And it's difficult to root for anybody because like there's Taylor, but Taylor's not a super active player. So it's like Taylor's not like running around doing a ton of game talks all the time. And so even if you're invested in Taylor, who else are you invested in? Are you invested in Michael's comp wins? He's also not talking too much. It's mostly Brittany having a lot of the conversations. Monty, Terrence, Turner, they're having a lot of these conversations. And I think that like after like this big emotional thing happened where like we were all sort of like feeling so much sympathy for Monty, for him to kind of like come around and be like, yeah, so Taylor sucks, was like, oh. And now it feels like oh, now we're watching Monty do this, and it's like who are we rooting for at this point? I think that's probably where a lot of this is coming from, and a lot of the suboptimal gameplay I think has just kind of left people with their scratching their heads like what are we even watching at this point? But
it also feels
I find
like there's nothing going on too in terms of like what's happening. Like we just have like Terrence and Alyssa on the block, and it's not like there's discussions of trying to convince Michael to put up someone else or whatever. I just feel like it's like, okay, let's just like get past this week and then, get Terrence out or whatever. And then like maybe something will open up. But it does feel like, yeah, like in addition to like, there not really being anyone to really root for necessarily because everyone's got their own things going on, whether it's like poor gameplay or like just like constantly bashing Taylor or like whatever. It's that, and then it's also just like nothing happening. Like I don't know, like maybe if Michael wasn't HOH this week and it was someone else, and there was the possibility that maybe like Michael gets backdoored or something. I don't know. Like I just feel like there's nothing really going on that like at least is keeping like my interest. So I don't know.
That's the thing, right? Like I thought that this would be a very straightforward and boring week because I figured obviously everyone's just targeting Michael, except there's a ton that did happen that has changed the entire landscape.
But it's not anything that's like impressive to watch or good gameplay because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that despite the fact that there's a lot going on, it's not something that people seem to be that interested in because it's just people being dummies.
Right. It's like these conversations about like them not wanting to target Michael or whatever. It's like, okay, but that's like not smart. So what am I supposed to be like caring about this for? I don't know. I just feel like it's like this. My also thought is like maybe they're lying. Like maybe they're just like saying this stuff to try and get Michael on their side. Like I hope, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, so I also am thinking like I shouldn't pay attention to this stuff because it's not actually going to mean anything, but yet maybe it will. I don't know.
I will say this again. I would be incredibly shocked if they were not actually on board, right? If they were lying to each other and to Michael. I think that I would be very, very surprised. I think that they can change their minds for sure. But I do think that they're both actually on board right now. So
yeah, I think that's also part of it. Is I feel like this whole season, even it's been a lot of people just constantly changing their minds or changing who they're working with, which like sometimes can be like entertaining and fun. But I feel like if you never can really take seriously a conversation that someone is having with someone else, like especially like when it comes to like Brittany or someone like that, who's like having these different conversations with a million different people, it's like you can't really grab onto anything as like, oh, this person's making this move and that move, because they're just talking a bunch with everybody and saying a bunch of random stuff, and you never know what's actually meaningful to them, what's actually going to pan out until the next week comes. So it does feel like a lot of just like meandering, meaningless conversations over and over and over again, with no like rhyme or reason or like reason to like pay attention.
But I would say the good thing about when the gameplay is like this and they're all over the place and you don't know what to believe, it does make me look forward to the episodes. So I'm like, okay, maybe
so
I
you can get like DRs or something.
DRs, yeah.
I think especially in anticipation of this double eviction, where it's like so many different things could happen and so many minds could change in the middle of it. Like, I'm super excited about the double eviction, and I personally have enjoyed the I mean, they've been like putting me to work again this week, but like, but I've found the feeds to be actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, because they said the ratings from the audience was that this week's feeds were worse than last week's feeds. You know, I mean, if we look at the combination of like what's actually happened on the feeds and then production, cutting and stuff, the cutting was awful last week. But then at least this week we are getting to see a lot. But if I turn it on and I see Chinese checkers one more time, I'm turning it off. If I turn it on and I'm hearing Brittany talk about whatever, all respect to her, she just has a lot of words to say a lot of the time. So it's just a lot to hear. And you know, one can only take so much of Monty and Terrence being the men that they are. So, you know, I could see why people feel that way about feeds. But yeah, if you find those nuggets that have, you know, led us to where they are today and the decisions that people will make going into this double eviction, yeah, a lot happened.
Yeah, all right. Well, final thing before we get to the ratings, ask the audience to rank the players from their favorite to their least favorite. Can we get a top three from both of you? Who do you think of the top three?
I'm gonna go Taylor, Michael.
I don't know. This is like very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Taylor, Michael,
Turner. It can't be Monty.
Melissa?
Brittany, Turner? I don't know. I honestly like can't even tell you.
You're both incorrect on the
Alyssa?
third. It is Taylor, Michael, and Monty. It is Monty. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
That is interesting.
But yeah, I mean, is there like a big drop off, or is it just like?
Yeah, I mean Taylor, Michael, huge out in the lead in 1 and 2, and then Monty with a little bit of a lead over the next 3, who are all very close, and then down at the bottom by a huge margin is Terrence.
Yeah. Wait. So what's the rest of the people?
Can you? All right. Well, let's see. Can you figure out the order of the 3 in the middle here, between Turner, Alyssa, and Brittany? What is the order?
I'm gonna go Alyssa, Turner, Brittany.
Melissa?
I don't. Honestly, they're all about the same. I don't know.
All right. Well, Aysha, you are exactly backwards.
Wow.
Wait, so it's what? It's
Brittany, Turner, Alyssa.
Wow.
In that order, yeah. So it's Taylor at the top, followed by Michael, then Monty, Brittany, Turner, Alyssa, and Terrence.
Turner has had like such a massive drop off since his like good weeks. It's very sad. Like even on like Joker's updates or whatever, when you've got like him like way at the front, like way at the top, and then it's just like down. So yeah, not good for Turner.
I think Monty benefited from like most of his most egregious comments coming at the start of the week, and maybe people kind of like forgetting about him. They just kind of forgot about the Iron Monty comments. So that's a Game of Thrones reference. Let's get into the stock watch.
All right.
Are we ready to rate the players?
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Let's pull it up here. Here is the Stock Watch. This is the portion of the podcast where we rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they are doing in the game. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. I also poll the audience to get their opinion on it. For me, I tend to look at a few different categories. One is short-term safety. How likely are they to leave in, say, a double eviction? Second is long-term prospects. How likely are they to eventually win the game? And then third, what kind of decisions did they make this week? As we get closer to the finish line, I'm going to start to look at long-term prospects as more and more important. Short-term safety also getting a little more important. Individual like work in the week may be toned down just a little bit, but I still like to rate that a lot more than people want me to. So let's get into it here. And let's talk about Michael. Michael first, our HOH definitely is a tricky one because in terms of decisions made this week, I really do think he made a mistake. I really do. I really think he should have been taking out bigger competition, make it easier for him to win this double eviction veto, make it easier for him to win at Final 5, Final 4, Final 3. That's his path to victory. I really think so. That said, I do like how he has handled the Terrence situation. I think that calling it out in a veto ceremony, assuming he went through with it, is a good idea. And ultimately, it is his, general, like, I'm good to my word kind of attitude that did allow for Monty and Terrence to come to him and theoretically be loyal to him. I think his long-term prospects still look really good, considering that he has a great chance of getting to the end, and I still think a great chance of winning the game. He's breaking records. That's all pretty decent. And his poor nomination decisions, I can't judge him too harshly for it because it did end up working out overall. I'm going to dock him a couple of points, but not too hard. I do want to point out, I mentioned last week on the roundtable that I did feel like Michael doing what he did to Kyle was a bad move for his game. Is sort of like getting Kyle out that week, essentially, was bad for his game. Not only did it potentially hurt him with the jury, but I just want to think about what would have happened if he hadn't done that, right? Turner was HOH. He was going to nominate Monty. Monty was going to go home. Michael, I have no reason to believe that Michael wouldn't have crushed that HOH competition, even if Kyle's playing instead of Monty. I have no reason to believe that Michael would have lost comics to Kyle when Michael, by the way, I'm pretty sure this has been calculated now, had the fastest time in BB comics ever. So pretty sure Kyle wouldn't have beaten him in that either. He probably would have won HOH and veto, and he would be currently sending out probably Kyle or Turner, and heading into the final 6, the double eviction, and then further with both Monty and Kyle or Turner gone and just one of Kyle or Turner left, as opposed to both Monty and Turner still in the game. I think that's a better spot for Michael personally. And he also wouldn't have this thing looming over his head, which is the upset of, Terrence and Monty and Turner, in terms of what he did with the Kyle situation, holding on to the information for as long as he did. So I do not think that it was a good move for him last week. That said, we're talking about this week, and I do think that overall, I'm gonna go with a 7 for Michael. I feel he is still in some danger. A 20% roughly chance to leave the game on Thursday. That's a pretty high percent chance. Let's not get that twisted. And that's how I see it, at least. That's not great. I don't love that for Michael. But as long as he does survive it, he's into the final 5. I think there's a good chance he wins out. I still think there's a good chance he wins the game, wins a jury vote. Again, I don't love his decision-making with the nominations. He's getting docked for that. But overall, I think around a 7 works for me. I would expect this to go up if he survives the double eviction, because I think it's going to start to look even more likely that he wins. But he's got to make some good decisions still, in my opinion, in order to keep this rating high. So that's me. Melissa, how do you feel about Michael?
Yeah, I think there's good and bad with Michael right now. I think obviously the nominations, not so great. However, the fact that now the week is turning out fairly well for him, with the boys coming to him and trying to, you know, make an alliance with him when they were the people who were probably going to be gunning for him first, is very good for him. However, I also think with the double eviction coming up, I do think that it's a little more precarious than if there wasn't a double eviction this week, mainly because I think a lot of the times when a double eviction happens, it's so fast that you're like, maybe now's the chance to just like get someone out, and they can't be mad at me, and they're not going to sit around for a week being angry, and like, let's just get them out quickly. And so I could see a situation where maybe Turner and Monty are like turn to each other and are like, now's our chance. Maybe we should just take it right now. It's a double. And just get Michael out. I don't know if that'll happen, but it always scares me with the double eviction with these big threats, just because it is like the easy out, just to do it where there's no week-long repercussions. So I really think that there's, you know, some danger still for Michael this week going into the double. However, I think overall he probably could win the veto in the double. So I think actually, you know what? I feel pretty good about the fact that I was going to stick with a 7, but now that I'm reminded of the fact that he has well, we don't know for sure about the veto speech, right?
No, I don't know that there's
really,
confirmation. No.
Okay. Cause like, I think that that's such a smart play. And I think it really like just negates any sort of power that Terrence may have thought he had by threatening him and going into the jury with this information, because it really just like stops it before it can even get started. I'm like a 7 or an 8. And I feel like, okay, maybe it wasn't his play that's going to get him the 8 this week, because he didn't necessarily make the play of like getting Turner and Monty on his side, but it did happen, and he is ending this week in a much better spot than he started it. So I'm going to give him the 8.
There you go. An 8 from Melissa. Aysha, how do you feel?
Yeah. I mean, Michael is brilliant. We can't deny that, right? He's a member of Mensa. He has proved time and time again that he just knows the best way around all of these competitions. He, he is coming out of this week in a better position than he walked into it. But that is not much doing of his own. You do have to take into account the other people he's in a house with, and he happens to be in there with a Monty and a Turner who just are just afraid of, just God forbid, Alyssa Taylor and Brittany just conquer this house, because that's just so likely. And that was sarcasm. So I'm just, the fact that he can, or he is possibly going to be going out in the double, if he doesn't win, there's just, I know, what people are saying, but it's kind of like you were saying, Melissa, it's hard to just believe that they wouldn't take the shot, no matter what is the case walking into the double eviction. So because of that, and, he has put himself into this position. And I just the way, just his poor decision making has shown that, and I know you talked about this on the live feed updates, Taran, is that he just doesn't make big moves. I mean, he can win competitions, but what are you doing that's just like, you can like pat your chest like, I did that. I made this move. I didn't just... Terrence and Alyssa were the easiest nominations that anybody could have made. He really could have gotten out a Monty or a Turner this week and then just been smooth sailing, whether he decided to win or not in some scenarios. So because of that, I do have to give him a 6.
There you go. A 6 from Aysha. I was personally between the 6 and the 7. I respect the 6 for sure. Not as much the 8, Melissa, but
how rude.
The audience, though, is actually going to agree with me on this one. They gave him a 7 from the audience. All right, let's move on then to Turner. Melissa, how do you feel about Turner?
I don't know. I don't feel so great. I think like moving into this week, especially like we're all sitting here saying he's like the most vulnerable going into the double. So I'm worried for him in his position. I think he's in with Monty, I guess, and possibly now in with Michael a little bit, but I really don't know if I see a scenario where Michael like decides to keep Turner safe over, Taylor or Brittany. I don't know.
For anyone.
Right. So it's like, I don't think that's really great for Turner. I think it's more benefit for Michael. And so I don't know. I also feel like Turner's losing like a potential like ally. I mean, who knows if they were actually an ally this weekend, like with their whole Dire Fest thing, the after party. He's either losing Alyssa or Terrence, and he's also kind of been distancing himself a bit from Alyssa. So I feel like he's kind of like he's not doing so great in regards to building up protections for himself moving forward. I don't really know what he's doing, and I don't really know why he's doing it. So I think at this point, because we're going into a double, I'm a little iffy. It could go either way. I'm gonna just stick with my 4. I don't think he played last week very well, and I think it's about the same this week.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, so Turner, it felt, I mean, he did come into this week and it felt like he had zero game plan. And then after this conversation with Brittany, it's like his world came together and he realized, okay, I have to have this alliance with Michael and Monty, and that's it. And that's the game plan. Which is just like, no, you would never beat Michael. And if you think that you can, you're wrong. Because weren't his 2 HOHs? Well, no, I can't say. I was going to say the 2 HOHs that he won was Michael even competing.
Michael threw the first one he won. He was not competing in the second one.
Yeah. So it's just like, Turner, where are you thinking that you have a chance against Michael? And it's not like, and I wonder in the back of his mind, because especially now that he's just like, wait a second, Brittany thinks I'm playing the same game as her. No, I've played a good game. I've done blah, 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 blah. I think, is he pumping himself up too much to think that he does stand a chance against Michael or Monty? Like, if he happens to get there with them, like, and they decide to stick together, he ends up final 2 with Michael, does he think, oh, wow, I could win this? Because if I think back on the things that I've done, if he's completely disregarding everything that Michael has done in terms of compared to Turner's game. So the fact that he's kind of lost in the sauce right now. I don't think like you said, his percentage is the highest to go home. I don't think that anybody is breaking their neck to save him at this point. I think even if Monty is in a position where, like, let's say Monty's not on the block and Turner is, easiest move not to use the veto on Turner because he may be in a situation of like, why would I? So yeah, because of that, I'm going to go ahead and do a 4 as well.
A 4 from Aysha. Well, the audience still feels okay about Turner. They gave Turner a 5. 5 from the audience. I don't feel okay about Turner, though. I gave him a 2 last week. I felt like he put himself in a really bad spot. And if not for Michael's, adherence to this deal that he made, not wanting to punish the good deed of Turner last week, Turner would be the one leaving this week. And even though he's not, he is still the most likely to leave next week, in my opinion, at least. And so that's not great. On top of that, it was Turner's idea to offer this deal to Michael. Like, Turner is the mastermind behind let's not target Michael. And I think Turner is also the person most likely to get hit by a shot that Michael takes. Most likely to be, the victim of his own move here. And on top of that, he has very strangely, like, just completely avoided, any real game talk with Alyssa all week. Now, I think that he may be changing that right now, as I believe he is talking with Alyssa and trying to rat out Brittany. But it's a little too late for the stock watch, unfortunately, because I do not know where that will go for him. And it does not negate the fact that he is still very vulnerable in this double eviction and that he is not actively targeting Michael. On top of all of that, let's say things do work out for Turner. Let's say that Michael isn't able to take him out, whatever the case may be, right? Turner's plan is to go to the end with Monty. He loses that. Like, he loses. He loses against Monty. I think he loses against Michael. Like, that's his final 3. Like, what are we doing here? I do not like Turner's gameplay right now. I'm gonna give him a 3.
With peace and love.
Facts. All right, let's move on to Taylor. Aysha, how do you feel about Taylor?
Oh, Taylor. You know, I made the decision very early in this game that I was going to ride for her no matter what. And I never knew that she would make it this far, that she would be, you know, planning out who's going home, that she wouldn't be the least likely going home, going into a double eviction. You know, I think that Taylor she's in a tough position. She's working with people who have just talked terribly about her, people that need her now. Like, if we think about Terrence and how awful he's talked about her, and then now he needs her. So it's just like Taylor is just such a pure, genuine human being. So it's kind of hard for her not to just show grace to everyone in the house. And then, you know, time and time again, even Monty, who is quote unquote giving her a lot of attention, he is also doesn't have her best interest in mind. So it's just like, okay, who do I line with? A duo who seems unbreakable? Or what do I do? But somehow she's been able to have a strong enough social game to where she is okay. You know, she's not in the best position, but she's still okay. And if she can make it through the double eviction, maybe even win a veto at some point, and then another HOH, we could find ourselves looking at a Taylor in the final 3. And there is absolutely no way that Taylor is in the final 2 and does not win this game. And so I think the fact that, you know, she is not the biggest target right now puts her in a great position. So because of that, I'm going to give her a 7.
A 7 from Aysha. The audience, a little bit lower on Taylor. The audience gave Taylor a 6 this week. And that doesn't help me because I have been a little torn here, but my thing about Taylor is that she's still such a target moving into this double eviction. She is almost equally likely right now, at least, to leave as Michael, which is not great. And she is, unlike Michael, if she survives the double eviction, she does not have this like, well, she'll definitely comp out. And I do think that like she just doesn't have anybody in the game that's willing to take her. I really am concerned for her. I was liking her position the last 2 weeks, primarily because I was waiting for, you know, this war between Michael and Monty and Turner. Like this was and Kyle at the time, and like all like these guys were going at each other, and Taylor was positioned to sort of like benefit from all of that. But if the guys call a truce, that leaves Taylor not as the person that benefits, but the person that gets targeted the most, even if she does get to that 5. And so I just don't like it. You know, how does she get from 5 to 4? How does she get from 4 to 3? And then how does she get from 3 to 2, especially if she's competing against Michael? I would feel so much better about her game if Michael was taking out Turner this week and everyone was targeting Michael in the double. I feel like that is her spot where I gave her a 7. I really like that for her. I just feel like this week has not played out super well. I don't mind her decisions this week. I like that she's trying to get Michael out. I like that she's, you know, working, I think, correctly. But I think overall, I have to go with a 6 here for Taylor this week. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what you're saying, although I do think that I don't think she's in as bad of a spot as we may be thinking. And I think that it all comes back to the fact that there's no way I believe that Turner and Monty won't take a shot at Michael if they have the chance. And maybe it's just wishful thinking or something, that like they are smarter than that. I don't know. But I feel like, yes, she is in a precarious spot. However, I don't necessarily think she's in that big of a dangerous spot going into the double eviction. So I think like if she survives the double, then like we don't know, the game might break open. We don't know what's going to happen after that. And also the fact that if she does make it to the end, I mean, she has just such a good chance of winning. Her win equity is huge. The jury wants to vote for her. They all speak very highly of her. She has the storyline. I just feel like there's not really anyone I can think of that she goes against in the end that she like loses to at this point. I mean, it's totally possible that things may change as it gets going, but at this point, I just feel like her story is so powerful for the jury. And like I said earlier, I think that the fact that people now in the jury want to find someone who will represent them as a whole, represent their season. I think that weighs a lot more on people than it maybe used to. So I think that will cause people to maybe want to vote for her. And I also think that there's some sort of like, maybe like redemption for the people who maybe were not so nice to Taylor to then vote for her in the end and be like, I'm on your side now. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I feel that trajectory. I don't know what's going to happen, but at this point, I do feel like I could comfortably keep her at her 7.
All right. Yeah. My only thing here is that I agree. I think that she has a really great shot to win if she makes it to the end. My concern is that I think everybody in the house knows it. And not a single one of them will let her get close if they can help it, in my opinion, at this time. But I would love to be wrong. Let's move on then to Brittany. Let's talk about Brittany. The audience gave Brittany a 5 this week. They gave Brittany a 5 this week, same as last week. Man, this is a weird one. This is a weird
I was just
one.
Thinking that. it's like so, oh God. It's like, I don't want to like take up your turn, but it's like the fact that she could get to the end, like everyone's like, she could be up against me. I could beat her. And then everyone else is like, yeah, even though she's in the end, everyone's saying they won't vote for her. So like, I don't even know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that people, here's the thing. I think that she's doing decent work to protect both her and Michael moving forward. I just think that she's not doing any good work to improve her own game. Mm-hmm. So I want to make that clear. I think people have been very down on her in general. They're just annoyed with her. They don't like what she's doing. And that's fine. But she is accomplishing the goal that she's setting out to do. And that's always a tricky thing for me. It's kind of like when Kylan successfully gave the game to Xavier, right? Like, yeah, he was good at doing that, but it didn't help Kylan. I want to acknowledge that I think that people are underrating the effectiveness of what Brittany has done so far. Because even if it does come crumbling down around her in the next couple of days, where does that leave her? Exactly back where she started. Like she's not lost anything. So, I don't think that is something that, I think if we're going to criticize her, we should be criticizing, and not to say that there isn't this criticism, but we should be criticizing her for being successful at the wrong thing. Which is that she's not advancing her own game. And I do think that her ability to win the game has continued to drop overall. At this point, especially since we're losing Terrence, who is the one person I feel like she still could have beaten in the end. And with Alyssa being one of the more likely people to leave in the double, who can she beat? amongst Turner, Monty, Michael, and Taylor, I just think that she is a complete losing finalist in that group of people. She maybe has a shot with Alyssa, but getting there with Alyssa is incredibly difficult, especially given that she's wanting to keep Michael around so much. So, man, I just think that her chance of winning the game has just gone down so much over the last few weeks. I will have to give her a 3 this week. I just think that her chances of winning are just so low. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to like, I guess like clarify that I don't think that I don't ascribe to the idea that she has just been carried the entire game and has done absolutely nothing. I don't agree with that. I do think that she has played the game, and I think that I mean, when I think of someone who didn't play the game and just got carried, I think of like Victoria from Big Brother 16. I do not see Brittany in that way at all. I think it's unfair to her to say that she did nothing. Yes, she kind of sometimes put her foot in her mouth or like said things she shouldn't have said or ran around and did stuff that maybe she shouldn't have been doing. But I think that she was still playing and she still made some good moves. And I mean, the fact that even last week we have Ovi and I rated her with 6. Like, I mean, we would never have rated Victoria a 6, even if it was like, oh, well, she's still making her way towards the end, because we were like, she's not doing anything. There's no way that she would win. So I don't agree with that at all about Brittany. I know that's how the people in the house are viewing her, but that's not how I view her at all. However, when it comes to the winner, the people in the house do matter. And they're going to be the ones voting for the winner. And at this point, it does not seem like anybody would vote for Brittany to win. So even if she gets to the end, even if we out on the outside are saying, you know, she did a lot this game, blah, 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 it doesn't matter, because they're not going to vote for her. They don't respect her game at all. They're convinced that she's done nothing. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't see a situation where she wins. It's sad, but, you know, that's just the way that the game is falling into place at this point. So yeah, I tend to agree with you, Taran. It would be, gosh, I feel like I'm going to bring her score down. I'm not going to go all the way to a 3 just because I do think that maybe she could turn around. Maybe something happens. I don't know. But at this point, it seems less and less likely that she has any shot at winning. So I'm going to give her a 4.
All right. Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, even though Brittany is not a Victoria, doesn't mean that she is playing a good game by any means. You could be active and be actively bad. And I think that Brittany has decided, like, I'm going to do whatever, when she realized, okay, if I go to the final 2 with Michael, I'm losing. So I'm losing either way. So let me just do whatever. Even though that doing whatever is helping Michael, it's awful for her own game. And I think even if she weren't doing all these things, she still would be a losing finalist, because then people would say, well, I just don't respect that she did anything. But I can't see the jury saying, oh, Brittany did so much, she really played the game, so I'm going to give her a vote. No, it's going to be like, she had a final 2 with everybody in the house. For why? When she's aligned with the guy who has the most competition wins in the house. So she stands no chance to win, but she is also still there. And I don't see, because she's doing a lot, even in the house, to where they feel the need to try to throw her under the bus to multiple people just because they're annoyed by what she's doing. I think that makes her more likely to, one week, like, let's just get rid of Brittany. Like, come on, let's just go ahead and do it, because it would just be less, not that she's bringing chaos, but less activity going on from a game perspective if she weren't there. So I think that, you know, given that she has no chance to win, I'm going to go ahead and agree with Taran on the 3.
There you go. Worth noting as well that if this new progress with Turner outing Brittany to Alyssa lands, which it seems like it might be, It doesn't mean that that like all of a sudden Brittany's like in a ton of danger, but it does open up a couple of spots where Brittany could theoretically go home in the double eviction if she does not have Alyssa's vote to stay. I would say so far it does not really help Turner that much either. Turner was already not leaving in too many of the spots where Alyssa was HOH, but one of the spots it helps. It would help Turner a little bit. It would hurt Brittany a little bit. Probably hurt Michael a little bit. Although Michael was already in a lot of trouble if Alyssa were to win that HOH. So just to talk you through if this shift does occur, I do think that Taylor benefits from this if Alyssa turns against Brittany, but not Taylor. So I would shift those percentages just a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. If it continues and changes more, and maybe, I mean, if you think about it, if Turner and Monty feel like they have Alyssa, they no longer need Michael because they now don't, like, if Alyssa's not trying to make an all women's alliance, then what do they need Michael for? They didn't need him in the first place. Right. They might realize that over the next 2 days, given this new turn of events. So keep that in mind. But can't factor it in again here in the stock watch too much because we really don't know where that's all going to head. So let's talk about Monty. Let's talk about Monty. All right, Monty. Oh man, Monty's a weird one. So I do think that through all of this, even if Brittany has opened a couple of spots where she could be vulnerable, Monty is still, I think, very safe here in the double eviction, mostly because Taylor, everybody would evict Turner over Monty, and very few people would put Monty up on the block in the first place. So that's very good for Monty, obviously. Getting through this week, this double eviction means that he is almost definitely in the final five, if nothing changes too much. That's huge for Monty. For as much as he hasn't won competitions, he did win a mental comp night one. He has won a skill comp. I think he's perfectly capable of winning something physical. I think that if Michael's not there, Monty can absolutely crush competitions. It's absolutely a possibility. If I was certain that Monty would take the shot at Michael in the double eviction, I would be very high on Monty. I would say that Monty is the most likely winner, and it's not close. Because if Monty is in the final five with Michael gone and Turner, who is willing to win comps and bring Monty to the final two and lose to him, there, wrap it up. It's over, right? Like it's done. And here's the thing. Despite Monty's bad decisions this week, there is still a possibility that happens because there's still definitely a chance that Michael leaves, whether Monty intends for him to or not, or maybe he just decides that he changes his mind at the time. There's still a possibility. That said, Turner, I still think, is the most likely person to leave. Maybe it's Alyssa now that he's flipped Alyssa, actually. That could have flipped them just a little bit. But if Turner leaves and he's in the final five with Michael without Turner, that's worst case scenario for Monty. If neither Turner or Michael leave, then he's still okay. At least he's got Turner still there. He's probably lost like Alyssa at this point. Maybe Taylor. That would be not great. But either way, maybe Alyssa wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for at that point. But it's similar to Michael, where I'm like, his decision making this week is very questionable. But the outcome is still decent for Monty in a lot of scenarios. Like even if Turner has a 30% chance of going home, that means there's a 70% chance that Turner is in the final five with Monty, which is really good. And if 20% of that is without Michael, that's really, really good. So I'm having trouble. Unlike Turner, who I feel like is making bad decisions all in favor of a losing game, I feel like Monty is making bad decisions that could still end up in a winning game. So it's tricky for me. I think that ultimately I have to be very harsh on Monty for the decision to work with Michael. if I had any indication that it was not true, or that he would change his mind, or that he was willing to take the shot at Michael at this time of the rating, I would give him at least a 7. But just saying that he's going to leave Michael in the game in the double eviction, I think, is such a colossal mistake, and there's no upside whatsoever. I have to give him a 6 here for the week. Melissa, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right in that if it weren't for this new Michael plan to keep Michael around, I would be thinking that Monty is in a really good spot. But I think that's just such a bad move for him. I don't know why he's doing that. And it's possible that he actually doesn't go through with this and he does actually take a shot at Michael. But at this point, we can only go off of what he's been saying he's going to do. And when he's saying it even to Turner that he is planning on sticking by this, then we have to just believe that. But yeah, at this point, I don't feel like I can trust him to make smart decisions. So yeah, I'm going to give him a 6 as well.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, so do y'all remember that 2009 film called starring Beyonce called Obsessed? That is Monty about Taylor.
Oh my God.
The energy that he has spent this week worried about her being vulnerable with him, not opening up to him. What more does she want? He's giving her so much attention. Why is it not being reciprocated? All of these things. And then just venting endlessly to Terrence about it. Maybe if all of that wasn't going on, he could have realized how dumb this plan was to align with Michael, because now he's put in a position to have to go against that if he decides oh shoot, I don't want to do that. So now you've jeopardized Michael's jury vote because you decided to align with him when he had no power, when it only benefited him to agree to this situation. It's just it's so annoying, for one, that he feels that Taylor owes him anything when she does not, by any means. That he thinks that just because right now he is giving her the attention that he's clearly in the back of his mind, he has said in so many words, we know that he is attracted to her and he realizes that she is a great catch. But the fact that she has not reciprocated, when, this is a little too late. She did find him attractive at the very beginning, but so much has happened. There have been people that have shown her kindness, Joseph, kindness, that she is just waiting to, let's see if something happens with Joseph. She is looking at Monty like an uncle. She called him Unc. And the fact that is what he's spending his energy on this week. I mean, I can't count how many conversations it's just been him investing time with Taylor, not getting the response and vulnerability that he wants, and then going to Terrence to vent about that. That has just completely derailed his focus. And he does have these things going on. He could be in an amazing position. He could have Taylor as just a ride or die. He could have Taylor's undying loyalty if he was just completely just forget about anything romantic. That's not happening. Okay, it's not happening. No matter how bad you want it, Monty, we're 50 something days into this game. You missed your opportunity. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Move on and just understand the value of Taylor as an ally in this game. And if he could do that without thinking, oh, well, why didn't she say this? Why didn't she tell me this? Could she be doing something else? Even if she did tell me the truth, why did she do that? He's always questioning her instead of just saying, oh, she's my ally in this game. That's why she's telling me these things. Maybe she's looking out for her. He never gives her the benefit of the doubt, but he's constantly has that in the back of his mind of just well, why isn't she interested in me? It's just get over that, okay? And then align with her completely, not this I'm on the fence thing, but see her as a true ally, and he could really he could be in a great position. So it's just I don't even know if there will be a position or there'll be a situation where that's his downfall, because I couldn't see Taylor. I couldn't see Taylor voting him out over someone else unless I can't even imagine a scenario where that would happen. But he could at least benefit from having her as one of his top allies, because he has that from Turner. Why? Because he's not going around questioning Turner constantly or wondering why Turner's doing this or doing that. Now Turner wants to take it to the end. He could have that situation with Taylor, but he chooses not to. So you have that, but then you also have everything that y'all explained, right? With his game. You have that too. So that all of that together lands me at a 6.
There you go. Well, the audience agrees. The audience also gave Monty a 6 this week. So it's going to be straight 6s for Monty. Let's move on then to Alyssa. Melissa. How do you feel about Melissa?
Yeah, I heard you say Melissa in the beginning of the recap when you were talking about the comics. I was like, wait, what? And then I understood what you were saying. But anyway, Melissa, I don't know. I think like, okay, the fact that she's sticking around this week is good for her. The fact that she I want to say she probably won't leave in the double, but I really don't know. I'm concerned for her and the fact that Turner hasn't really been talking game with her. Terrence is leaving. I mean, to be fair, Turner is talking game with her, but it's right now and we can't see it, so I don't know. And those things are not great for her. However, she does have the fact that her and Taylor and Brittany were talking about linking up this week, but then Brittany went and ratted it out, so I don't know. I'm worried about her winner's equity. I feel like she doesn't really have a shot to win unless she's like up against maybe Brittany. It's also tough because I think if Monty and Turner were still interested in targeting Michael and Michael was still interested in targeting Monty or Turner, which I think Michael probably still is, but like if we knew for sure that those two sides were going to be going at each other, then I think I'd feel better about Alyssa's position because I would be thinking like, okay, well, at least like she's kind of maybe going to fall to the wayside and can kind of scoot through. But I really don't know if she's going to be able to do that. This is a tough one. I feel like because she's surviving this week, I don't know. I think I still want to keep with my 3. It's not that she's doing so poorly or anything. It's just that I don't really see her. I just don't really see her winning. And the fact that she's still in danger for this double is concerning to me. And it really shouldn't be that way. She shouldn't be in danger at all because she's not doing much. And it would be a really easy thing to keep her around and maybe even drag her along to the end. So the fact that she is in a dangerous spot moving into the double is just not good for her. She's done some good work this week. But at the same time, Brittany's kind of just undone it. So, yeah, I'm gonna give her a 3, but there's a possibility that it goes up.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you did turn me around a little bit on Alyssa, doing what she could. But I just don't see what game she has at this point. I think like her whole game right now is dependent on Brittany and Taylor being loyal to the 3 women. And, if what's happening right now with, Brittany's game being exposed to Alyssa, and I know Alyssa and Taylor are talking, don't know what's happening there. I'm trying to avoid Twitter because I also don't want to see the claim to fame spoilers. So it's a tough spot. So I'm not as high on her game. I think the only situation she could win is if she's in the final 2 with Brittany. And in what world does that happen? So because of that, I'm going to have to, I think, she doesn't go to home this week. She's going home at some point. I don't think she's making final 2. Unless Brittany goes. then she might take that Brittany spot of being an easy final 2, but with all her friends in jury, she may not. So I think I'll go ahead and give her 2.
A 2 from Aysha. Well, the audience is a 3 for Alyssa. 3 for Alyssa. I will say, I think that had Brittany not blown up Alyssa's spot with the women's thing, I could go as high as a 4 for Alyssa, but Brittany did do that, and it put Alyssa in a worse spot. I will also say that if we had more time to digest and confirm the information that is seemingly happening right now, that apparently Turner has again ratted out Brittany to Alyssa, and that Alyssa is apparently now willing to put Brittany on the block if she wins HOH. If I had that confirmed, I would give her at least a 2 or maybe even a 1, because what are you doing putting Brittany on the block in the double eviction? That's a terrible idea. Part of the reason why I was giving you any credit is because you were one of the only people smart enough to put 2 guys on the block. And now that might not even be the case. So luckily for her, I have not confirmed that yet. So ultimately, I am going to go with the 3 here. Honestly, she's lucky it's not a 2 anyway. Mostly just I do like what she attempted here with the women's thing. I do like how she's operated with Taylor, Brittany, and Michael. I think she's done a good job of making sure that she survives the week. And I think that there's definitely a chance that she could still pull out a win against somebody like Brittany. So don't take Brittany out. Would be my advice to Alyssa. But what are you gonna do? I think that she's more likely to win in the end than Brittany, but obviously she's in a more precarious position at this time. So that's about how I feel on Alyssa. Let's move on to Terrence. Aysha, what do you think about Terrence?
You don't want to know what I think about Terrence. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of his game, I think he was resigned to the fact as soon as he hit the block, he's like, no, I got to go play a different game in jury, and that's it. Wipe my hands. I'm done here. Got to go. Rather than, okay, I'm on the block. Let's reassess. He's been on the block a million times, but this is the time he just gives it up. This is the time. Well, now I'm on the block. I got to go home. So it's just like, okay, that's exhausting. But yeah, I mean, we've seen him win a veto in a very special circumstance, and then win an HOH in a very special circumstance. So I think if he were to stay, he could, I mean, people could see him as a person that they could easily win against, but being up against Alyssa, and he's doing himself no favors by not allowing the other people in the house to see a benefit for him to stay. I think he's still working on trying to find individual people and how to appeal to them, but it's not going to work with, I mean, I know during this he had a conversation with Taylor, but Taylor's kind, but she also has not forgotten that you just tried to keep Kyle last week after everything that happened. So he's pretty much, I mean, I think there has to be some type of major blow up or something. I don't even know what could happen to make him stay. And I think, throwing out these threats is doing him no favor of turning the jury against Michael. So it's really hard for me to find a reason to give him a 2. So I'm going to go ahead and give him a 1. And I'm just going to say, I'm just going to be very glad that he is out of the house, because he just has this toxic masculinity that is just not something pleasant to watch. And I can't stand the fakeness that he has with Taylor. So I just need that out of Taylor's presence, so she doesn't have to deal with his fakeness anymore.
Yes. Well, the audience not quite as low on Terrence. The audience gave Terrence a 2 this week. Here's the thing, though, for me. Has Terrence played terribly this week? Pretty much, yeah. Has he played terribly leading up to this week? Yeah, even more so. You know, that's pretty much it. You know, like it's he hasn't done a good job here, and you know, theoretically, yeah, he could still stay. It's possible. I don't think it's very likely at this point, but especially with everything going on right now, it's, you know, certainly not completely impossible. But here's the thing. Even if Terrence does stay this week, he's not winning this game. He's getting a 1. He's getting a 1. He's getting a 1. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, even if he stays, which maybe there's a chance he does, but he's not going to win. And I think at this point, that matters a lot towards these ratings. I think like earlier in the season, like if we know that there's a chance that someone might stay in the game, it's hard to be like, but there's no chance they're going to win because, you know, anything can happen. But now that we're really nearing the end game, and we already know what the jury is going to consist of, it's just, you know, it's easier to say like this person's not winning. So yeah, I think Terrence gets a 1 here.
There you go. 1 for Terrence. This has been a season of ones, I think. Lots of bad gameplay coming from the people who are heading out the door.
Yep.
So that's about what we have here for this week's Stock Watch. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what it does to the leaderboard. I can tell you that not a great week for me, I think.
Yeah, not for me either.
You know, it could have been. Look, all I needed this week was for Monty to not be a big dummy and want to keep Michael around. I think he easily gets a 7 as long as he's targeting Michael, but no, he's got to be keeping Michael around. Thanks, Monty.
I like don't even remember what I did, but I think I bought some Monty, and yeah, so that's not great for me. I don't know exactly what I did.
How could I predict he's gonna not target Michael anymore? Come on.
I mean, yeah, that's like the easy move is like, yeah, target the biggest threat. I don't know. It's very bizarre to me. And also it's like this just happened too, basically. It's not even like this is something that happened like at the beginning of the week and blah, blah, blah. Like this is something that happened right before the roundtable. If they just waited like a little bit, like maybe a couple days, maybe one day, they could wait to talk about this stuff. And then we could, you know, still score him high and then still have good stocks and it'd be good.
Yeah, we need a super fan in the house who has invested in the Stock Watch. And they're like, guys,
look, let's not say our stupid plans. Let's wait for our stupid plans until the night before the eviction.
Yeah. Let's see. The website's taking a little while to update here, so let's just do we have any final thoughts to wrap up the podcast, Melissa?
Mainly that this is my last roundtable for the season, because I'm going on my late honeymoon, and so I won't be here for the next 2 weeks, but I will be here for the finale. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I'm gonna miss rating all the players. So sad. But at least I'll be back for the finale. That's the most important part anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Aysha, any final thoughts?
Just that I'm very, very, very excited for this double eviction. I hope that it is entertaining. I hope that we don't have time for fluff. I'm especially excited to see the jury. I just want to see how all of that went down. We have a lot of people who have gone to jury and we haven't seen any of it. So I would really like to see their reactions, what they're talking about, if any minds have been changed, how Joseph was received. I know the ladies love Joseph, but I just want to hear what he thought about his eviction and then what they thought about how Kyle was evicted. So I think I would be fine if the jury segment was 30 minutes, because don't we have 2 hours to work with, right?
Yeah, I doubt we'll get 30 minutes of jury, but
right.
you know, We've got 2 hours to work with.
Right. So hopefully we get something significant, more than 5 minutes. I'll be happy with more than 5 minutes. But yeah, outside of that, I'm still glad that, you know, they're giving us something to work with. It's not a clear-cut path to the finale. So even if they are making dumb moves left and right, at least things are changing and it gives us a reason to turn on the feeds.
Yeah, well, you know, again, by the sounds of it, some things are shifting here in the house right now. So if you want an updated version of my double eviction predictions, I would say tune in Thursday on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. I'll talk about the stock watch. I'll probably go through an updated version of it based on the new events to see if there's any good changes to talk through. The website is still struggling, so we may not get an updated leaderboard tonight. But that's about what we've got. Make sure you tune in, of course, tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I will be updating you on everything that happens here today and tonight through the night on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. Tomorrow night, of course, we're gonna have an episode. I'll be live on Twitch watching. And then we'll have a podcast to recap what happens after. And then Thursday, a 2-hour double eviction. I'll be live on Twitch watching in the moment. Come and join me. It's going to be a party. We're going to have a good time. And then we're going to be live afterward to recap everything that goes down. It's going to be a good time. So check all of that out. Check out the Among Us videos I'm posting on YouTube. You can find me over on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Been talking to House of the Dragon on post-show recaps. I also did a Sandman podcast recently. Lots of stuff going on. I also did a stream with Jacob Jones on Monday. We have a new little show on Twitch. We chatted about life and things and drama. It was a good time. So you can check out the VOD there. I'll also be posting it on YouTube as well. So you can tune in next Monday if you want to hear the next episode of that. Aysha, where can people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Aysha like Asia. That's AYSHA like ASIA. Recently, I joined Rob and Jenny as well as Scally to talk about Claim to Fame. We talked about last night's episode. I believe it's episode 9. It's the first part of the finale. They did the 2-part finale this week. So I had a great time. So go check that out if you need to catch up before the finale or before you watch the finale. Also, every week talking about Married at First Sight over on the Perfect Match podcast with my co-host Jason Reed. We will be talking about episode 10 this week of season 15. It's definitely been a great time. We're having a lot of fun with that. We have a Facebook page for the people that listen to the podcast. And so that's been a great time. And then I also have a brand new project. I did something very different. I was a part of it's a supernatural audio drama. It's available anywhere where you get your podcast. It drops on September 9th, and it's called Shadow and Smoke. And I play a character. It's a scripted scripted audio drama. So you can find that wherever you get your podcast.
So cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, Melissa knows a little bit about that.
Oh, you know.
You've dabbled.
Just a little dabbling.
Yeah.
Look at the actors on this panel. Oh my God.
I know. It was outside of my element, but it was a lot of fun.
It's very cool. Very cool. Yeah. You can, of course, find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3 A's. 3 A's. And thank you, Lori, the House of the Dragon podcast. All right. So that's about what we have, unless Melissa, you have any acting projects that you want to bring up?
Unfortunately, no. But I still want to plug Dennis's Claim to Fame episode on the Rob and Akiva Need a podcast, because that was a big deal for us to have Dennis finally make an appearance on the podcast. So recommend people check that out. He did a good job. So yeah, that's about it. I'm sad that I'm going to miss the next few roundtables, but I'm very excited to come back for the finale, and it'll be good time.
Yes. Well, you will be missed, Melissa. If you want to check in on the updated leaderboard, again, you can find me over on Twitch. We'll probably stream about it on Thursday. It is not updated yet, but that's what we have for you here today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and We will see all of you next time.